हरि ओम। ओम श्री गणेशाय नमः। ओम श्री हिरण्यगर्भाय नमः। ओम श्री महाविष्णवे नमः। ओम श्री महादेवाय नमः। ओम श्री महादुर्गायै नमः। ओम श्री राम रामाय नमः। ओम श्री सद्गुरवे नमः। ओम समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् शंकरं शंकराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। शङ्करं परमानन्दं ब्रह्मनिष्ठं यतीश्वरं भाष्यभ्रान्तिहरं वन्दे शुद्धज्ञानैकबोधकम्। ओम नमः शिवाय। 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 नमः पार्वती पतये हर हर महादेव। हरि ओम हरि ओम। We'll begin with the Shanti mantra. Om आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक् प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्याम् मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्माः ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु। ओम शांति शांति शांतिः। हरि ओम। We shall read chant from the first mantra of the 24th section. यत्र नान्यत् पश्यति नान्यत् शृणोति नान्यत् विजानाति स भूमा अथ यत्र अन्यत् पश्यति अन्यत् शृणोति अन्यत् विजानाति तद् अल्पम् यो वै भूमा तदमृतम् अथ यदल्पं तन्मर्त्यं स भगवः कस्मिन् प्रतिष्ठित इति स्वे महिम्नि यदि वा न महिम्नि इति। गोऽश्वमिह महिमेत्याचक्षते हस्ति हिरण्यं दासवार्यं क्षेत्राणि आयतनानि इति नाहमेवं ब्रवीमि ब्रवीमीति होवाच अन्यो यस्मिन् प्रतिष्ठित इति। स एव अधस्तात् स उपरिष्टात् स पश्चात् स पुरस्तात् स दक्षिणतः स उत्तरतः स एव इदं सर्वम् इति अथातो अहंकार आदेशः एव अहमेव अधस्तात् अहम उपरिष्टात् अहम पश्चात् अहम पुरस्तात् अहम दक्षिणतः अहम उत्तरतः अहमेव इदं सर्वमिति. So the teacher told Narad ji that yo vai bhuma tat sukham na alpe sukham asti. That which is bhuma, that alone is sukha. There is no sukha in the limited. And what is bhuma? Bhuma means infinite. Infinite means there are no divisions of any kind. There is nothing other than that. And within that infinity also there are no divisions. There are no divisions of seer and seen, knower and known, experiencer and experienced. So no divisions. We see divisions in the state of ignorance. I see myself as different, I see this world as different from me. So when I see this world as different from me, I see it, I hear it, I know it. So there is this division is seen, and the vyavahar, the transaction happens within this division, as I am seeing, I am hearing, I am tasting. But in bhuma, there are no such divisions. The seer, the seen are all one bhuma alone. Everything is bhuma. Sa Bhagavat Kasmin Pratishtita iti, and on what is it, what supports this bhuma? Where is it established? The bhuma is established in itself, in its own mahima. But from an absolute standpoint, it is not even established in itself. In the world, generally, our possessions and all, we consider them as our glory, like the cows and wealth and land and houses. And generally, these glories are different from us. So one should not think that bhuma is established in its own glory. Means there are certain things which are different from bhuma. That is not what the teacher is conveying. The teacher says that it is not established from a higher standpoint. It is not established in anything. And how to understand this? So in the 25th section, first mantra, the teacher says that everything is bhuma, sa eva adhastat. Even below, everything is bhuma alone. Bhuma alone is below. Bhuma alone is uparishtat, is above. Bhuma alone is behind. Sapaschat. Sapurastat. Bhuma alone is in front. Bhuma alone is on the right. Bhuma alone is on the left. So sa dakshinatah, sa uttaratah, sa eva idham sarvam. That Bhuma alone is everything. Bhuma is indicated here as he. So he alone is everything. So one may misunderstand that there is some Bhuma which is infinite, which is everything, which is above, below, in front, behind, on the right, on the left. And one may misunderstand that I am different from Bhuma. I have got nothing to do with this Bhuma. So in order to remove this misunderstanding, the teacher indicates that Bhuma with reference to the Ahankar. So it is called Ahankar Adesha. Ki aham eva adhastha, that I alone am below, I alone am above, I am behind, I am in front, I am on the left, I am on the right, I alone am everything. Means everything is I and I alone. That Bhuma is not different from me. So what is indicated as Bhuma is myself only. So I alone am everything. So sa aham eva idam sarvam iti. Yesterday in the previous class, we contemplated on what is this ahankar. So this ahankar is a vritti which we have of I am when I am awake. This thought is there about our own existence, which we experience as I am. And we also experience this world, but we experience this world with other thoughts. We don't experience this world as I, but we experience this world as idam, 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 as this. So this ahankar is a very interesting vritti which happens just as when we pursue this world, the corresponding vritti, a corresponding thought happens in our antakarana. In the same way, in the presence of that bhuma, a corresponding thought happens in our buddhi, in our antakarana, as I am. And that is called ahankar. But due to ignorance, because of not recognizing that I am as Bhuma, we misunderstand that I am as the body, as the mind, as the intellect, as the senses, as the pranas. And maintaining this misunderstanding, we interact with this world. And that itself becomes the cause of all our sorrow and suffering in this world. And this misunderstanding we have been carrying forward from our past lives. And if we don't gain this self-knowledge, we will continue to have this misunderstanding in our future lifetime also. So we have to recognize the real meaning, the real significance of this I am. One should know who am I really. See, again, to think about it, that when we are awake, means when in the waking state, the body is active, the mind, the senses are active, and I experience myself as I am. In the dream, also the body and the mind is active, and I experience myself as I am. But in the deep sleep state, the mind is not active. The antakarana remains dormant, but the pranas are active. The pranas continue to function even when one is in deep sleep. And in these pranas, the presence of that Bhuma, of that Supreme Brahma, is there as pure existence. Just as when the whole world goes into pralay, the whole world remains as pure existence only. Sadeva Samyedamakrasit. Or just as when all the ornaments, the hundreds of variety of ornaments are there, when you melt them, then what happens? What happens to the bangles and earrings and necklaces? All of them just remain as gold. Nothing more, nothing less. They just remain as gold. Similarly, when all this world goes into pralay, it just remains as existence, as sat. Because that is the supreme nature of that Brahma, as sat. That sat alone expresses in the pranas as existence, which subjectively we experience as am, am. So there is just that amness is there in deep sleep. I just remain as am. But when the mind intellect wakes up, then that amness itself is expressed as I. It gets a personality, it gets an individuality, and I experience that amness as I am. And when I identify with the body, mind, and their activities, then the I am further gets a personality, like I am a man, I am a woman, I am young, I am old, I am walking, I am talking, I am seeing, hearing, all this. For example, the light of the sun. When it passes through a glass, a plain glass, it just passes through as it is without getting to call without getting modified or without expressing in other form. But when the same light passes through a prism, it gets split into various colors. In the same way, when that pure Brahma expresses through pranas, it just expresses as am, whom, asmi. But when it passes through the prism of our antakarana, then it gets a personality as I. I say I am. I call that amness as I. It's the most amazing, most fascinating experience of I. If you contemplate, if you observe it, I think it's the greatest miracle, greatest wonder that one experiences one's own existence, or one experiences that existence as I. I am. I say I am. But then this I am gets further colored by other things like I am a man, I am a woman, I am young, I am old. So the more and more it gets colored, the more and more we as though move away from our own nature. So when I am gets colored with I am the body, then it just limits me. I find myself limited within this body. Also, the activities, the characteristics of the body, I consider them as my characteristics. So if the body is old, I say I am old. Body is young, I say I am young. But that I or that am is neither young nor old. So that is how we identify with all this and suffer in this world. So we have to recognize ourselves as we are. So first the teacher pointed out that Bhuma and then revealed that Bhuma from the standpoint of Ahankar as I alone am above, below, on the right, on the left, in front, behind. I alone am everything. But our association of this Ahankar with the body, mind, and their activities are so strong that we might continue to identify with them or continue to think that I, the body, is Bhuma, I, the man, is Bhuma, I, this person, is Bhuma. Shankaracharya writes in his Bhashya कि अहंकारेण देहादि संगातः अपि आदिश्यते. By the term ahankar, generally ignorant people identify with deha, etc., with our body, mind, senses. And why they do this? Aviveki, because of avivek, because of not understanding them separately. Again, to give that example of the sun and its light, the sun's light is you can say white light, no colors. But when it passes through a prism, it appears to have these multiple colors. And when it strikes some objects, then we see different shapes also. But the pure light doesn't have any shape, doesn't have any color. It is pure as it is. Similarly, that Bhuma, that Brahma, doesn't even have the thought I. But that Bhuma alone is expressing as I in this Antakarana. As Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi Ji says in his shloka, कि हृदय कुहर मध्ये केवलम ब्रह्म मात्रम यहम अहम इति साक्षात आत्म रूपेण भाति. That kevalam Brahma, that supreme Brahma, that all pervading Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma expresses in our Antakarana as I. हृदय कुहर मध्ये केवलम ब्रह्म मात्रम अहम 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 इति साक्षात आत्म रूपेण भाति. But because of our ignorance of not recognizing that Brahma properly, one identifies with the body, the mind, the senses. Therefore, Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi says that you dive within and go to the very source of this I to find out from where it is emerging. What is the object of this I? Just like when I have the thought of an apple in my mind, when I look at this apple, the thought of apple comes in my mind. But the thought of apple itself is not an apple. The thought of apple itself is not an apple, but it is representing this apple. Similarly, the thought of I itself is not Brahma, but it is representing Brahma. It is indicating Brahma. It is pointing out to that Brahma. So instead of just looking at that thought, go to its source. Find out what is that which is expressing as I thought. What is that reality which is expressing as that I am thought in my Antakarana? That is that Brahma. And that is what is pointed out here. So ahankarena dehadi sangato api adishyate aviveki bihi iti atah tad ashanka ma bhutiti. So to eliminate the wrong notion that we might think that ahankar, which identifies with body, mind, intellect, itself is pointed out as the Bhuma. In this following mantra, the teacher now points out that Bhuma from the standpoint of that pure self, pure Atma, Shuddha Atma. So the teacher is taking us to a subtler and subtler level, to the pure level. So here now in a pure form, the teacher is indicating that Bhuma as our own pure self. So let us chant mantra number 2. अथात आत्मादेशः एव आत्मैव अधस्तात् आत्मोपरिष्टात् आत्मा पश्चात् आत्मा पुरस्तात् आत्मा दक्षिणतः आत्मा उत्तरतः आत्मैवेदं सर्वमिति स वा एष एवं पश्यन् एवं मन्वानः एवं विजानन् आत्मरतिः आत्मक्रीडः आत्ममिथुनः आत्मानन्दः सस्वरात् भवति तस्य सर्वेषु लोकेषु कामचारो भवति अथ ये अन्यथातो विदुः अन्यराजानः ते क्षय्यलोका भवन्ति तेषां सर्वेषु लोकेषु अकामचारो भवति. The teacher says, Atha, now, Atma Deshaha, from the standpoint of Atma, that Adesh is given. That Shuddha Atma, through that Shuddha Atma, that Supreme is pointed out. Means that Shuddha Atma itself is pointed out as that Supreme. See, this Ahankar is a thought. So through the thought, that Supreme was pointed out. But now, the teacher is pointed out that Supreme through the Supreme itself. The Shuddha Atma is pointed out through Shuddha Atma itself. No middleman, no other indicator, no other thought as a support. Directly that Atma is pointed out. So, ataha atma desha eva, Atma eva adastat. So that Atma alone is below. Atma uparishtat, Atma alone is above. Atma paschat, Atma alone is behind. Atma purastad, Atma alone is ahead. Atma dakshinataha, Atma is on the right. Atma uttarataha, Atma is on the left. On the left also Atma alone is there. Atma eva idagam sarvam, Atma alone is all this. Shankaracharya ji writes in his commentary, कि अथ अनंतरम आत्मादेशः. Now the Atmadesh is given, means that Adesh teaching is given through the Atma, taking the reference of the Supreme Atma alone. And what is that Atma? Atmana eva kevalena satsvarupena shuddhena adishyate. This Atma is that Keval Atma, that pure Atma, which is one without a second, in which there are no division. Keval means which is that's one alone. See, when we experience this Ahankar, which is just a thought of that Atma, so I experience this Ahankar in this Antakarana as I am. And you also experience it in your Antakarana as I am. And he also experiences it in his Antakarana as I am. So in every Antakarana, this I am is experienced. But the pure I, that pure, that self, is not many, it is one only. It is just like the sun when it is reflected in different water bodies, it appears as though there are many, many suns. But really speaking, the sun is only one. So one may point out that sun through the reflection. One may show that sun in the water body and say, oh, that is the sun. But one may mistake the water to be the sun, or one may mistake the reflection to be the sun. So now the teacher is directly pointing out to the sun and saying that is the sun. He is not pointing out to the reflection, but he is directly pointing out to the sun and saying that is the sun. So he is pointing out directly to that Shuddha Atma. Say Atma, when you say Pratyek Atma, then it means this Atma as experience in this body. But when it is said Shuddha Atma, pure self, then it is not the one which is experienced in this body, which is present in all the bodies, which is present everywhere. Just as the space, when I say pot space, then I refer to the space within this pot. But when I say pure space, then it means the space which is everywhere, not only in this pot, but outside the pot and everywhere. Similarly, when we say ahankar or when we say pratyekatma, we mean that self expressing only in this particular body. But when it is said pure self, it is that which is everywhere, which is one alone. So atmana eva kevalena. So Shankaracharya ji uses the term keval. Keval means one alone. There are no divisions in it of any kind. And what is this Atma? Sat Swarupena, which is Sat Swarup. Even the thought I is not there. It is just pure existence itself. See, when we say I mean different from you, different from this object. So even the term I conveys some division. But that in Atma, that term I is also not there because there is nothing other than that self. There is nothing other than that self. Therefore, it is Sat Swarupa. It is pure existence itself. Shuddhena, which is absolutely pure, means there is no impurity of avidya or any other impurity. No, there are no impurities in that self. So, from the standpoint of that self, that supreme is indicated. Means the self itself is indicated as that supreme. So Atma eva sarvataha sarvam iti evam ekam ajam sarvato vyomavat purnam anya shunyam pashyan. So that Atma alone is indicated as below, as above, as in front, as behind, as on the right, on the left. And Atma eva sarvataha. Atma alone is in all the sides, everywhere. And sarvam, and everything is Atma alone. Iti evam ekam. Iti evam ekam, and Atma is ekam, one. Ajam, unborn. Atma is not born. It is ajam. Sarvataha Vyomavat. It is all pervading like space. It is present everywhere like space. Purnam. It is complete. There are no incompleteness in Atma. Anyashunyam. Nothing other than that Atma is there. Other than Atma, nothing is there. So this Atma has to be seen and recognized as myself. Means we should drop all other identification and hold on to this Atma itself as I, as me. And such a person who can do this, Pashyan Sava Eva Vidwan, such a Vidwan person, such a wise, intelligent seeker, who is able to recognize this Atma, Shuddha Atma as I. See, nobody told us to identify with the body, but we identify with it. Consider it as I, which is a totally false notion. But here the teacher says you drop all this false notion and identify with yourself as you are. So Vidwan, and how can we do? How did this wise person do it? Sava eva esha Vidwan manana vijnanabhyam. Through manan and vijnana. See what you are doing now, all of you, is Shravan. Through Shravan, you understand what the Shastras are teaching, what the teacher is teaching. You intellectually understand what the teacher is conveying. Thereafter, we should do mananam to make our understanding absolutely clear, without doubt, without any doubt. That happens through mananam. That we gain that complete conviction that yes, that which is pointed out as pure Atma, that I am. Just as in a mirror, if I show you the apple in the mirror and tell you that you eat this apple, you try to eat that, you will not be able to eat. But when you look into the mirror, you can also see where the real apple is. And if you can hold it and eat it, that alone will give you joy. Similarly, the I thought and the I am notion which we have in our antakarana is just like a reflection. So shifting our attention even from there, we have to identify with who we really are, that Shuddha Atma. So through Mananam we have to understand this, contemplate and understand. And then once we have understood, once we are free from all doubts, then we have to again and again shift our attention towards this Atma. We have to shift our attention towards the Atma. That is called Nididhyasana, that is the meditation. Meditation is to continuously shift our attention to our real self. Now our attention is on the body. From that body, you shift your attention to the I am thought. And from the I am thought, you shift your attention to that pure M, pure existence, that pure Atma. So this continuous practice of this is what is called nididhyasana. One has to drop all other activities, one has to drop all other agenda and just practice this steadily, continuously. And when we do this, a paradigm shift happens from the ahankar, from the thought of I am, we just shift to the pure I am. Like from the reflection of the apple, you just shift to the apple. From the thought I am, you gain abidance in the pure I am. So that person is called a vidwan, wise person, enlightened person. So Shankaracharya writes कि पश्यन् स वा एष विद्वान् मनन विज्ञानाभ्याम. One who has become vidwan through manan and vijnana, means through meditation and directly realizing the self. Such an enlightened person, what happens? What is the experience of such an enlightened person? What happens to the world? What happens to his body? Everything remains as it is. The world doesn't disappear, the body doesn't disappear, the mind doesn't disappear. But a shift happens. Just like if you have to shift your attention from the pot to the clay, nothing will happen to the pot, but your attention will shift to the clay. If you have to shift your attention from what is written to the color, let us say there is a stop sign on the road, STOP is written. So you read it as stop. But if you shift your attention from the letters, you will only see the color, the red color. So the sign doesn't disappear, only your attention shifts. Similarly, enlightenment is not that something will happen. Our attention shifts from Dvaita to Advaita, from mortality to immortality, from darkness to light, from asatyam to satyam. Like the famous prayer is there in Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad. Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritangamaya. It's a prayer to that supreme divinity that please take me from asat to sat, means from the changing to the changeless, from the pot to the clay. Asatoma sadgamaya, tamasoma jyotirgamaya, from darkness to light, from ignorance to knowledge, and from mortality to immortality. When we identify with the body, mind, and think they are me, I experience mortality. I experience death, I experience change. But just shifting the attention to that reality, I transcend the mortality and attain the immortality. The enlightened person also continue to live in this world only, but he is living in that pure self. In Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan says, what is dark, what is night for everyone, the wise person is awake. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagarti sayyami. What is night for all the ignorant person, in that the wise person is awake. See, if when we are ignorant, that Supreme Brahma is like night only for us. We don't understand anything. But in that Supreme Brahma, the wise person is awake. So Vidwan Manano Vijnanabhyam, such a enlightened person, what is his expression? So the Shastra says, Atmaratihi. He is the one who revels in his own self. Atmani eva rati ramanam yasya. So I am Atmaratihi. He revels in his own self. Like in Gita, Bhagavan talks about the Sthita Prajna. Atmanevatmana tushtaha. He is totally content and satisfied in his own self. Atmaneva atmana tushtaha. Atmanevatmana tushtaha. So Atmaratihi revels in his own self. Tatha Atma Kridaha also plays in his own self. Krida means playing. Shankaracharya writes the difference between Rati and Krida. He said, Dehamatra sadhana ratihi, bahya sadhana krida. He says, when you don't require any other props, just revel in your own body, that is called Rati in the world. Apne masti mein. Not that he is having anything, but just reveling in his own self. So that is called Rati. And when we use some other instrument to enjoy, like people play games with some cricket or football or badminton, or we play with other people around, our friends, then that is called krida. So loke stribihi sakibihishcha kridatiti darshana. So one plays with the friends, etc. It's called krida. But here this enlightened person, he revels in his own self and he plays also in his own self. He doesn't require anyone else because there is nobody else. So he revels in his own self, he plays in his own self. Na tatha vidushaha kim tarhi atmavijnana nimittam eva ubhayam bhavati ityartah. So because of his enlightenment, he doesn't require any outer props. He doesn't require any other person. He doesn't require anything else. He just revels and plays in his own self. See, the more and more we so-called progress in this outer world with our new inventions and all, the more and more we become dependent on other equipments for our joy and for our entertainment. The scientific world is progressing very fast, and every time they come up with some new gadget, some new version of the phone, the new technology. Nowadays, they are developing and have developed to a large extent this artificial intelligence. And the more and more they develop, the more and more amazing things they will do. And then every one of us will become more and more dependent on them for everything. All our transactions also in the world, in the very, very ancient time, there used to be barter system. Then they invented this money. Then they invented all these cards, debit card, credit cards. And nowadays we do all the transaction online. Don't have to carry money and all. In future, they might discover something, we don't have to carry our mobile also. So chip will be put in our head maybe. And automatically all the transaction will happen. So more and more we become dependent on the outer world, on gadgets, and more we become foolish and ignorant. We remain ignorant. A wise person is one who becomes more and more independent. He revels in his own self, he plays in his own self. And Mithunam, even Mithunam, Dvandva Janitam Sukham Tad Api Dvandva Nirapeksham Yasya Vidusha. Also in the world there is a Sukha which two people, husband and wife and all, they together they have this Sukha. That is the Mithunam. But for an enlightened person, even that Mithunam happens in his own self alone. Means the self is of the nature of pure bliss. Doesn't require anything. One cannot even imagine it. We can't even imagine that ananda which an enlightened person experiences. In Taittiriya Upanishad, Rishi tries to convey this in stages, that the greatest anand which one can gain in this world, if a person is young and is wealthy and is the sole king of this whole world and also very wise and talented, that happiness which that person will gain is 1 unit of happiness. And this enlightened person gains 100 units of that happiness. I mean, he gains infinite units of that happiness. 100 times that happiness of that unit is the happiness which one gains in other lokas like Swarga Loka. The Devatas get some more happiness, Indra gets some more happiness, Prajapati gets even more happiness. But this enlightened person gets much more than all of them put together. All their happiness will be like one drop in front of the limitless happiness of this enlightened person. So tatha atmanandaha shabdadi nimitta anando avidusham na. तथा अस्य विदुषः किं तर्हि आत्मनिमित्तम् एव सर्वं सर्वदा सर्वप्रकारेण च. So for an enlightened person, all ananda is due to Atma alone, not due to some object, not due to achieving something in this world. देह जीवित भोगादि निमित्त बाह्य वस्तु निरपेक्ष इत्यर्थः. Shankaracharya writes कि even his ananda is not dependent on deha, on his body, not even on his life. Therefore, an enlightened person doesn't need life to be alive also to experience this. As long as he's alive, it's fine. But he doesn't even require to be alive to experience happiness. So deha, jivita, bhoga, he doesn't require any pleasures, any objects of this world to gain happiness. Now, bhogadi nimitta bahya vastu nirapeksha ityartha. Devoid of all of them, he gains the supreme happiness. And that is what all of us can attain if we have to have faith that what the Shastras are teaching is true, and then sincerely follow the path shown by the Shastra and attain this eternal happiness before we die. Because if we die, then we don't know when we will get the next chance. So before we leave this world, in the sense before this body gets dropped, one has to realize one's own supreme self. More about this we will see in our class on Friday. So till then, you take care, be happy, safe, peaceful, healthy, do your work, do your sadhana. Listen to the pravachan again. Share this pravachan with your friends and your relatives. This is the greatest gift which one can give to anyone. And we will meet again on Friday. Hari Om. Shri Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Jaya Ram. 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 Jaya Jaya Ram. Jaya Jaya Ram. Bole Syavar Ramchandra Bhagwan ki Jai. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.